It was a sunny afternoon when Emma decided to visit the high-end jewelry store downtown. She had been eyeing a beautiful necklace for weeks, and today she felt it was the right moment to treat herself. She had a taste for luxury, always liking to surround herself with fine things, but her visits to places like this had always felt a bit intimidating. The sparkling diamonds, the expensive gold, the extravagant watches. It all made her feel slightly out of place. Yet her husband, Jason, always encouraged her to enjoy the finer things in life, saying she deserved them. As she walked into the store, the familiar chime of the door rang in her ears, and she tried to ignore the nervous flutter in her stomach. She adjusted her outfit, which was smart but not too flashy, and walked in with a smile. The store was elegant. Everything about it was polished and pristine. The high-end brands lined the walls, the soft glow of the lights highlighting the sparkling jewels on display. She made her way toward the counter where a woman behind the register greeted her with a polite, but somewhat distant, smile. Emma returned the smile, feeling a little out of place but determined to make this visit worthwhile. Her eyes scanned the shelves, admiring the stunning necklaces, each more beautiful than the last. But it was one piece, in particular, that caught her eye. A delicate gold necklace with a diamond pendant that seemed to shimmer with an elegance she hadn't seen before. The moment her fingers brushed over it, she could feel the warmth of the gem. Her heart skipped a beat. This was the one. "Excuse me," Emma called, trying to get the saleswoman's attention. The woman looked up, her smile quickly fading as she gave Emma a once-over. "How much is this necklace?" Emma asked, pointing to the beautiful piece she had her eye on. The saleswoman hesitated for a moment, her eyes scanning Emma's outfit. She seemed to make a judgment, and Emma immediately felt uncomfortable under her gaze. After a brief pause, the saleswoman finally replied, her voice colder than Emma expected. "This piece is quite expensive. I'm not sure it's in your budget." Emma's smile faltered for a moment, but she quickly composed herself. "I'm sure I can manage," she said softly, hoping her confidence would mask the embarrassment she felt. But the saleswoman didn't seem convinced. She crossed her arms, taking a step back, and with a slight eye roll said, "If you'd like, I can show you something in the more affordable range." Emma's face turned red, not from anger, but from the sudden rush of humiliation. She had experienced judgment before, but never so openly, especially in a place like this. She was used to luxury. Her husband had always made sure of that. She knew she wasn't dressed in a way that screamed wealth, but she didn't think she looked out of place either. Yet, the way the saleswoman had spoken to her made her feel small, unimportant, and almost invisible. Feeling like the spotlight was on her, Emma quickly glanced around, hoping to avoid any more attention. The saleswoman, still with her arms crossed, turned away to help another customer, leaving Emma standing there, feeling out of place. She looked down at the necklace again, almost as if hoping it would call out to her, but the moment had passed. She let out a quiet sigh, slowly backing away from the counter, her heart sinking as she made her way toward the door. The door chime rang again, but this time, it felt like an exit rather than an entrance. As Emma walked out of the jewelry store, she felt a knot tighten in her stomach. The warm sunshine outside did little to lift her mood. The embarrassment from inside the store lingered like a heavy cloud. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had been judged based on how she looked, rather than who she was. She had never been treated this way before, especially not in a place she had visited so many times. She'd always been proud of her ability to fit in anywhere, to feel comfortable in the most luxurious settings. But today, she had felt anything but comfortable. She took a deep breath, trying to clear her mind, but the more she thought about it, the worse she felt. Her fingers brushed against the cold metal of her purse, and for a moment, she wondered why she hadn't worn something fancier. Maybe a dress, maybe heels. Maybe then she wouldn't have been looked down upon. Her thoughts were interrupted when her phone buzzed in her bag. She pulled it out, hoping to distract herself, and saw a message from Jason. "How's your day going, my love?" It was a simple question, but as she read the message, her frustration bubbled up. She had been looking forward to spending the afternoon with him, maybe finding a gift for herself as a treat. But now, all she felt was disappointment. She typed out a quick reply, "It's been okay. I found the necklace I liked, but the lady in the store wasn't very friendly. I think I'll just head home." She hit send and tucked her phone back into her bag, trying to shake off the negative feelings. But as she walked down the street, her steps felt heavy, as if the weight of the day had already worn her down. She decided to stop at a nearby cafe to gather her thoughts and calm down. As she stepped inside, the familiar warmth of the place surrounded her, but it didn't bring the comfort it usually did. Instead, she felt like everyone was watching her. Maybe it was all in her head, but it didn't change how she felt. Emma ordered a coffee, hoping the rich, bitter taste would take away some of the sting. She sat by the window, staring out at the passing cars and people, lost in her thoughts. The more she tried to focus on anything other than the experience at the jewelry store, the more it replayed in her mind. The judgmental look from the saleswoman, the cold way she had been dismissed, it all felt so unfair. Emma had worked hard for everything she had, and it wasn't just about material things. She had built a life with Jason, a life that meant something to her. Why should she be made to feel inferior in a place that was supposed to be welcoming? As she sipped her coffee, a thought crossed her mind. Why hadn't Jason been with her today? He was always so supportive, so encouraging. Maybe if he had been there, none of this would have happened. She smiled faintly at the thought. Jason had always made her feel special, regardless of the situation. They had a bond that she cherished deeply, and she was grateful for it. But today, she felt like she needed him more than ever. Just as she finished her coffee, her phone buzzed again. It was Jason. "I hope your day's getting better. Call me when you get a chance. I've got something important to tell you." Emma raised an eyebrow, curious about what he could possibly need to share. She quickly dialed his number, eager to hear his voice. Maybe this would be the distraction she needed to take her mind off the jewelry store, but little did she know, the conversation she was about to have would change everything. As Emma waited for Jason to pick up the phone, she stared absent-mindedly at the small latte cup in front of her. The steam was rising slowly, and for a brief moment, she focused on the warmth it gave off. She felt a little better, calmer, at least. The rhythmic buzzing of the phone brought her back to reality, and she quickly swiped to answer. "Hey, babe," she said, trying to keep her voice light. "Hey," Jason's voice came through with a familiar warmth. "How's everything going? Are you okay?" Emma hesitated for a moment. Should she tell him about the incident at the jewelry store? She knew he'd be upset if she did, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something about the whole situation wasn't sitting right with her. Maybe it was because she had never felt so judged for something as simple as wanting to buy a gift for herself. But then again, she didn't want to burden Jason with her emotions when he had so much going on. "I'm fine," she said, her voice a little quieter than usual. "Just a bit of a frustrating day. Nothing to worry about." Jason seemed to sense something wasn't right. There was a pause on the other end, and then he said, "Emma, you know you can tell me anything, right? Don't bottle things up." His words, soft and reassuring, made her feel a little lighter. She took a deep breath and decided to open up. "I went to that jewelry store I've been meaning to visit. I found this necklace I really liked, but the saleswoman, she kind of treated me like I didn't belong there. It wasn't just about the necklace, Jason. It felt like she was looking down on me." She could hear the slight shift in Jason's voice, a mixture of surprise and concern. "What do you mean? Did she say something?" "Yeah." Emma sighed, feeling the frustration creep back. "She didn't directly say anything rude, but the way she looked at me, the way she talked to me, it was like she didn't think I could afford the necklace. And when I asked about it, she suggested I look at something cheaper instead." Jason was silent for a moment, processing what she'd said. Emma could almost picture him furrowing his brow, trying to make sense of it. Then finally, he spoke again, his voice calm but firm. "That's not right, Em. You shouldn't have to deal with that." She smiled weakly, grateful for his support. "I know, but it just stung, you know. I've always tried to fit in at places like that. But today, it felt like I was invisible." Jason's tone softened. "You're anything but invisible. You're amazing, Emma, and I want you to remember that, okay? That store doesn't get to define your worth." Emma felt a small flutter of relief in her chest. It wasn't just the words he said. It was the way he said them, as though he truly understood her feelings. It was moments like this that made her appreciate Jason more than anything else. "I'll be home soon," she said, her voice a little brighter. "I just needed to clear my head for a bit." "Good," Jason replied with a gentle chuckle. "And when you get home, I've got something to share with you too. It's a bit of a surprise, but I think you'll like it." Her curiosity piqued. Emma sat up straighter. "A surprise? What kind of surprise?" "You'll see," he teased. "But trust me, it's a good one." Emma smiled at the mystery in his voice. Despite the earlier incident, she couldn't help but feel excited about what he might have in store. "All right, I'm looking forward to it." After a few more lighthearted exchanges, they ended the call. Emma stood up, stretched, and glanced around the cafe, a small smile tugging at her lips. Jason always knew how to make her feel better, even on the toughest of days. She took one last sip of her coffee and decided it was time to head home. Whatever Jason had planned, she was ready for it. Little did she know, the surprise he had in store for her would turn her entire day around. As Emma walked out of the cafe and made her way toward her car, she felt a renewed sense of energy. The conversation with Jason had lifted her spirits, and she was beginning to shake off the sting of the earlier experience. She couldn't help but smile at the thought of what he might have planned for her. Jason always had a way of surprising her in ways she never expected, and today she was more than ready for one of his thoughtful surprises. The drive home was peaceful, the streets bathed in the golden light of the late afternoon sun. Emma hummed along with the music on the radio, her mind wandering to thoughts of her husband and the life they had built together. She had always been proud of their relationship, their partnership, and the way they supported each other. Today had been a reminder of just how lucky she was to have him by her side. When she pulled into their driveway, she noticed Jason's car parked in the usual spot. Her heart skipped a beat as she wondered what surprise he had for her. She stepped out of the car, walking toward the front door with a sense of eager anticipation. As she entered the house, the familiar scent of their home filled her senses. The soft glow of the lights cast a warm ambience over the room. Emma smiled to herself, feeling a sense of comfort in the space they had made together. She removed her coat and hung it up, then made her way into the living room, where Jason was waiting. He was standing near the window, looking out over the garden. But as soon as he heard her footsteps, he turned to face her. A smile spread across his face, and Emma felt a rush of affection for him. He looked every bit as handsome as he had the day they first met. Confident, kind, and always there when she needed him most. "Hey there," he said, his voice filled with warmth. "How's my favorite person doing?" Emma grinned, her mood already lifted just by seeing him. "Better now that I'm home," she replied, stepping closer to him. Jason chuckled and took her hand, guiding her to the couch. "I'm glad, and I'm sorry about earlier. I hate that you had to experience that. But I've got something to show you that'll make up for it." Emma's curiosity only grew as he led her to the couch and sat beside her. She could see the excitement in his eyes, and it made her even more eager to find out what he had planned. "Jason, you're being all mysterious," she teased. "What's going on? What's the surprise?" Jason smiled, his eyes sparkling. "I think you'll be surprised, but not in the way you expect. Just trust me." He stood up and walked over to a small table by the window. Emma watched as he pulled out a sleek, black box and turned back toward her. Her heart raced as she realized what was happening. Was this it? Was this the surprise she had been waiting for? Jason slowly walked toward her, holding the box in his hands. "Open it," he said softly, his voice filled with anticipation. Emma's hands trembled slightly as she reached out and took the box from him. She could feel her breath catch in her throat as she carefully opened it. Inside was a stunning piece of jewelry, a necklace, similar to the one she had admired earlier that day. But this one was different. It was more elegant, more personal. The diamonds shimmered in the light, and the pendant seemed to have a special, almost mystical quality to it. She gasped in surprise. "Jason, this is gorgeous. But how? How did you know?" Jason's smile widened as he sat down beside her. "I know you've been eyeing that necklace for a while. I saw how much you liked it, and I couldn't let you leave the store without it. So, I made a call." Emma's eyes widened in disbelief. "Wait, what? You called the store?" Jason nodded. "I knew something didn't sit right with me about how they treated you. So I called the owner, made arrangements, and had it delivered here." Emma was speechless for a moment, unable to believe what she was hearing. Wait, the store. You own it." Jason chuckled softly, a hint of pride in his voice. "Surprised? I didn't want to tell you right away, but I thought you deserved to know. The store is one of my projects. I've been managing it for a while now. And I couldn't let someone treat my wife that way." The realization hit Emma like a wave. The moment she had walked into that jewelry store and felt so out of place, Jason had been behind the scenes, orchestrating the entire thing. He had seen the way she had been treated, and without a second thought, he had taken action to make things right. Tears welled up in Emma's eyes, not from sadness, but from a deep sense of love and gratitude. "You really do know how to take care of me," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Jason reached out and gently cupped her face, wiping away a tear that had escaped. "You deserve the world, Emma, and I'll always do whatever it takes to make sure you feel loved and respected." Emma sat in awe, staring at the beautiful necklace in her hands, still processing what Jason had told her. She had never expected him to be involved with the store, let alone have such an influential role behind the scenes. Everything that had felt humiliating earlier that day now seemed so small compared to the gesture he had made. She looked up at him, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Jason, I can't believe this," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "You really went all out for me. You knew exactly what I wanted." Jason smiled, his eyes soft with affection. "I know you better than anyone, and I could never stand seeing you treated the way you were. No one deserves that." Emma felt a rush of love for him, the weight of the earlier frustration slipping away with each passing second. Jason's actions weren't just about the gift or the store. It was about how he always knew when she needed him most, even before she realized it herself. His thoughtfulness, his ability to make her feel safe and cherished, was something she treasured more than anything. She gently placed the necklace back in its box, still unsure whether she should even wear it yet. It was so beautiful, almost too precious for an ordinary day. But then, she thought about the effort Jason had put into making sure she had it, and she realized that there was nothing ordinary about it. It was a reminder of their love, of how they both always supported each other, no matter what challenges they faced. "I don't even know what to say," Emma said, her voice full of awe. "You've really surprised me today." Jason chuckled, a playful spark in his eyes. "Well, that's the point, isn't it? I like seeing that look on your face." Emma laughed softly, wiping away the last of her tears. "You know, I don't think I've ever felt more loved and appreciated. This is beyond anything I could have imagined." Jason took her hand, his expression growing serious, yet filled with affection. "You're my world, Emma. I'll always do whatever it takes to make sure you know that. No one gets to make you feel less than you are, and I won't let anyone treat you that way again." The sincerity in his voice made her heart skip a beat. She had always known how much Jason loved her, but moments like this made her realize just how deep that love ran. It wasn't just about the big gestures or the grand surprises. It was about the way he showed up for her in the small moments too, when she needed him the most. "I know," she said softly, her voice thick with emotion. "And I'll never take that for granted." Jason smiled warmly, squeezing her hand. "Good. Now, what do you say we go out and celebrate? I'm thinking dinner at your favorite place. You've had a rough day, and you deserve to be treated like the queen you are." Emma's face lit up at the suggestion. "That sounds perfect. I'd love that." As they stood up from the couch, Emma felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The earlier tension, the sting of humiliation, it all seemed so distant now. What mattered was the bond she shared with Jason, the way he constantly made her feel special and loved. She realized that, no matter what anyone else thought, she had everything she needed right here, with him. And nothing else could ever change that. The night ahead promised to be filled with laughter, good food, and the comforting presence of the man who always knew how to turn even the hardest days into something beautiful. Emma couldn't wait to see where this new chapter of their lives would take them. But for now, she was content to simply enjoy the moment, knowing that with Jason by her side, she could face anything that came her way. As Emma and Jason made their way to the restaurant, the weight of the day seemed to melt away. The drive was quiet but comfortable, the soft hum of the engine, and the faint glow of streetlights creating a calm atmosphere. Emma leaned back in her seat, her fingers tracing the delicate chain of the necklace Jason had given her, still not quite believing how thoughtful he had been. Jason glanced at her with a smile. "You still thinking about it?" he asked, his voice gentle, almost amused. Emma nodded, her lips curving into a soft smile. "I just can't believe you did all of that. I've never felt more cared for. You really made me feel special today, Jason." He reached over and squeezed her hand, his thumb brushing over her skin in a comforting gesture. "You deserve to feel special every day. No one should ever make you feel less than you are." Emma's heart swelled with affection. She had known Jason was kind and generous, but today, his actions had shown just how deeply he understood her, how much he truly cared. His support wasn't just about the material things, it was the way he stood by her, how he always had her back when she needed it most. The thought of how he had quietly made everything right made her feel like the luckiest person in the world. As they pulled into the parking lot of the restaurant, Emma's mind began to shift from the emotional weight of the day to the excitement of the evening ahead. The restaurant, a charming bistro tucked in the corner of the city, was known for its intimate ambience and delicious food. Jason had always been good at choosing the perfect spots to celebrate moments like this. They stepped out of the car and walked toward the entrance, the scent of freshly baked bread and rich herbs greeting them as they approached the door. The soft murmur of conversation and clinking glasses filled the air. And for a moment, everything felt perfect. Emma smiled at Jason as they entered, feeling a sense of peace settle over her. The hostess led them to a small table by the window, and as they sat down, the soft lighting and cozy setting made it feel like they were in their own little world. Emma gazed out the window for a moment, watching the world outside as the night unfolded. The stars were visible, twinkling in the sky, and the gentle night breeze seemed to carry the promise of a fresh start. It felt like a new chapter was beginning, one where Emma could shake off the doubts and frustrations of the day and just focus on the love she shared with Jason. The waiter came over to take their order, and they made small talk, exchanging smiles and laughter as they discussed the menu. But underneath the casual conversation, there was a deeper sense of connection between them, a quiet understanding that they both knew the day hadn't been easy. Jason's quiet strength had carried Emma through, and now, as they sat together at this table, she couldn't help but feel grateful for his presence in her life. As the meal progressed, the conversation shifted to lighter topics, memories of vacations they had taken together, funny stories from their past, and dreams of what the future might hold. Emma laughed more freely than she had in hours, the worries of the day feeling further and further away. Jason had that effect on her, the way he could make her feel like everything was going to be okay. no matter what the world threw at them. Later, as they enjoyed their dessert, Jason reached across the table and gently took her hand. "I'm really glad we did this," he said softly. "I don't want you to ever doubt how much you mean to me." Emma squeezed his hand, her eyes shining. "I don't doubt it, Jason. Not for a second. You've shown me more love today than I could ever put into words. I'm so grateful for you." Jason smiled, his eyes filled with warmth. "And I'm grateful for you, Emma, every single day." As the evening drew to a close, Emma felt a sense of contentment she hadn't experienced in a long time. The day had started with a moment of humiliation, but by the time they left the restaurant, it had transformed into a beautiful memory. She knew that with Jason by her side, no matter what happened in the future, they would always face it together. When they got back home, the quiet of their house seemed comforting, a gentle end to a perfect evening. Emma felt like she could finally breathe easy, her heart at peace. She had come to realize that the best part of the day wasn't the necklace or even the surprise. It was the way Jason had shown her that love, respect, and support were what truly mattered. And in that moment, Emma knew that she would always carry that feeling with her, no matter where life took them next. The next morning, Emma woke up to the soft rays of sunlight filtering through the curtains. She stretched out beneath the warm covers, still feeling the peacefulness from the night before. The memories of her dinner with Jason and the way he had completely turned her day around brought a smile to her face. She could still feel the love and support he had shown her, and it filled her heart with contentment. As she sat up in bed, the quiet of the house felt like a comforting embrace. Jason had already left for work, but she could still feel his presence, his caring nature echoing through their home. The necklace he had given her the night before rested on the nightstand, its soft sparkle reminding her of how much he truly saw her, how much he truly understood her. For a moment, Emma thought back to the events that had unfolded over the last 24 hours. The humiliation at the jewelry store, the sting of being judged, and the way she had almost let that experience define her day. But that was before Jason had walked in and shown her a different side of things. He had reminded her that no matter what, she was worthy of respect, love, and kindness. It was a lesson she'd learned before, but somehow, in the rush of life, she had forgotten it. Jason had been the anchor she needed to bring her back to herself. After getting ready, Emma decided to spend the morning taking care of herself. She went for a walk in the park, the cool breeze on her face refreshing her as she took in the beauty of the morning. The trees were in full bloom, the flowers vibrant with color, and the sky was clear and endless. She felt at peace, the stress of the past few days melting away with each step. She thought about how much she had grown over the years, how much she had learned about herself and the people who mattered most to her. As she walked along the path, Emma couldn't help but reflect on the earlier experience at the jewelry store. At first, it had felt like a defining moment, like it had somehow marked her, made her feel small. But now, looking back on it, she realized that the only reason it had hurt so much was because she had allowed someone else's opinion to matter more than her own. She wasn't defined by how much money she had or by how others saw her in that moment. She was defined by her actions, by her heart, by the love she gave and received. Jason had been right to step in and show her that her worth wasn't determined by the judgments of others. It wasn't about how expensive a necklace was or what anyone thought she could afford. It was about knowing her value, about believing in herself, and about standing up for what she deserved. Jason had reminded her of that, and she knew she would carry that lesson with her from now on. As Emma sat on a bench, watching the people around her enjoy their day, she felt a sense of gratitude wash over her. She had everything she needed in her life: the love of a man who would always support her, the confidence in herself that had been rekindled, and the understanding that no one's opinion could ever take away her worth. When she returned home, Jason was already there, finishing up a call in the living room. He looked up as she entered, his face lighting up with a smile. "How was your walk?" "It was beautiful," Emma replied, walking over to him. It gave me a lot of time to think, and I realized something important. Jason put down his phone and turned his full attention to her. What did you realize? I realized that I don't need anyone's approval to feel good about myself, she said, her voice full of conviction. I'm not defined by what other people think. I know my worth, and I'm grateful for everything we have. I'm not going to let anyone or anything make me feel less than what I am. Jason's eyes softened as he reached out to take her hand. I'm proud of you, Emma. You've always been amazing, but it's good to see you remind yourself of that. Emma smiled, feeling the deep sense of peace settle within her. Thank you, Jason, for everything. Always, he said, his voice steady and sure. I'll always be here for you. As they stood there, holding hands, Emma felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the life they had together. She knew that no matter what came their way, they would face it side by side, with love, respect, and understanding. The struggles of the past had taught her valuable lessons, but it was Jason's unwavering support that had truly helped her see the strength she carried within herself. That evening, as they sat down to dinner together, Emma felt a quiet joy in her heart. The journey of the day and the lessons learned had brought her closer to who she was meant to be. And with Jason by her side, she knew that every challenge ahead would be easier to face, because with love and a reminder of her worth, Emma was ready to take on anything the future had in store. The days following the evening at the restaurant seemed to flow with a newfound calmness that Emma hadn't experienced in a while. The feeling of warmth and security that Jason had given her, both in his actions and words, remained with her, filling her every day. As the days went on, Emma became more and more aware of how much she had taken for granted before. The subtle gestures of love, the strength of their relationship, and how deeply Jason cared for her. One evening, after a particularly busy day, Emma found herself sitting on the couch in their living room, a cup of tea in her hands. The house was quiet, save for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional sound of traffic outside. Jason had gone out for a brief errand, leaving her some time to reflect. She was alone with her thoughts, something she appreciated more than she realized. As she sipped her tea, her mind drifted back to the moment when everything had started to feel like too much. The embarrassment she had felt at the jewelry store, the feeling of being judged by someone who didn't even know her. That day had shaken her, but looking back now, she realized how much stronger she had become because of it. It hadn't just been about the necklace or the rude saleswoman. It had been about something deeper, the reminder of her own worth, and how easy it was to let the world's judgment shape her. She thought about the conversation she had with Jason, how supportive and understanding he always was. The more she reflected, the more she realized just how fortunate she was to have someone like him in her life. Jason didn't just see her for who she was now. He saw all the potential she carried, all the strength she sometimes forgot she had. He was always there, grounding her, lifting her up when she faltered. Emma felt a warm rush of gratitude for him, and a gentle smile appeared on her face. There was so much love between them, and she knew that no matter what challenges came their way, they would always face them together, united in their bond. It wasn't just about the grand gestures or the romantic moments. It was about the quiet, everyday acts of kindness, the understanding, and the respect that they shared. It was in the small things, in the way Jason always knew when she needed a little extra support, when she just needed someone to listen, or when she needed a reminder of how much she meant. Her thoughts were interrupted when she heard the sound of the front door opening. Jason's familiar footsteps echoed in the hallway, and a few moments later, he appeared in the living room, carrying a bag of groceries. He smiled as he noticed her sitting there, the soft glow of the lamp illuminating her face. "Hey, there you are," he said, setting the bag down on the counter. "How's the tea?" "Perfect," Emma replied, her smile widening as she stood up to greet him. "I've just been thinking about everything. About us, about how much I've learned over the past few days." Jason raised an eyebrow, walking over to her. "Oh yeah, what kind of things?" Emma reached out to take his hand, the warmth of his touch calming her. Just how lucky I am to have you in my life. I've learned that the things that matter most aren't the things other people think or say. It's what's in here, she said, gently tapping her chest. And you've helped me remember that. Jason's face softened, his eyes full of affection as he squeezed her hand. You don't ever need to doubt your worth, Emma. I've always known how amazing you are, even when you might not see it yourself. Emma felt a deep sense of comfort in his words. She knew, without a doubt, that no matter what happened, Jason would always be there to support her, to remind her of her strength and her worth. It was a comforting thought, knowing that the love they shared wasn't just built on fleeting moments. It was solid, rooted in trust, respect, and a deep understanding of each other. As they sat down together on the couch, the day's worries seemed to fade away. The world outside felt distant, and in that moment, it was just the two of them, sharing a quiet evening at home. Emma leaned her head against Jason's shoulder, the soft rhythm of his breathing calming her. You know, Emma said after a pause, I've come to realize something else too. What's that? Jason asked, his voice gentle. That it's okay to need help sometimes, she replied. It's okay to lean on the people who love you, and it's okay to ask for support when you need it. I don't have to do everything on my own. Jason smiled, his arm wrapping around her as he pulled her closer. And I'll always be here to help, every step of the way. Emma closed her eyes, feeling a wave of contentment wash over her. There was no place she'd rather be than here, with Jason, surrounded by the love and understanding that had grown between them. And as they sat together in the quiet of their home, Emma knew that